You're listening to episode 965 of the Father Bales podcast. Welcome back. Well, this week's episode is part 3 of 4 regarding our continuing theme of Christology. We have a preaching series we're doing. And so this is entitled, You May Be Gnostic If, given on the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time, 2025. When I first arrived at Holy Trinity, I introduced myself as a sinner. And guess what? I still am. You know, when I was younger, I sometimes thought, I wish I didn't have this body. It causes me struggles and temptations of the flesh and disordered desires. I wanted a body without these hang-ups. Like the sci-fi movies where consciousness is transferred to another person. Think of the Picard series. Or maybe a computer. Yeah. My friends, this is a classic case of Gnosticism. Gnosticism, a heresy we're going to be covering today in part 3 of our 4-part series on Christology. Last week, Father Anthony talked about Arianism, the belief that Jesus was man but not fully God. He showed how we sometimes fall into Arianistic thinking, treating Jesus as a super saint instead of the eternal Son of God. And he focused on how such theology encourages a transactional relationship with God instead of a covenantal. You remember that? Today we'll explore the opposite of this theology, which is Gnosticism, which claims Jesus was divine but not truly human. Now, Gnosticism isn't tied to a single founder like Arianism is. It came into prominence in the 2nd century, and it persists still today. It espouses that the spirit is good and that the body is bad, denying that God would ever then take on flesh. So for Gnostics, Jesus is God but not truly human. It also claims that salvation comes through secret knowledge. And this is where the word Gnosticism comes from, the word knowledge, gnosis in Greek. So they believe it's secret knowledge rather than grace or faith. St. Paul's writings today make it clear. Christ needed a human nature, a body, in order to save us. For without it, our faith is in vain. St. Irenaeus, a church father and a doctor of the church, is quoted in our catechism, paragraph 1015, when he wrote, "The flesh is the hinge of salvation." The flesh is the hinge of salvation. The Catechism continues. It says, we believe in God as creator of the flesh. We believe in the Word made flesh in order to redeem the flesh. We believe in the resurrection of the flesh, the fulfillment of both creation and the redemption of the flesh. Flesh, 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 flesh. In other words, salvation is the door that opens and closes based on Christ's death and resurrection in the flesh. For if he was just a mere phantasm, we have our hope in vain. So here is just a couple ways that we can kind of slip into Gnostic thinking, because I know I do and think we all can. And these ideas and others come from an article that I found that was reporting on Pope Francis's reflections on Gnosticism. Apparently he talked a lot about it, and I didn't know that. The article is entitled, You May Be Gnostic If. So fill in the gaps. So here we go. You may be Gnostic if you define your religion by your feelings. You may define your religion by your feelings. So if your faith depends on how it makes you feel, like seeing God as close to you when you're inspired and distant when you struggle, you're leaning into Gnosticism. Christian holiness isn't about emotional highs. It's about living out the truth, even when we don't feel it. And in fact, especially when we don't feel it. It's not about secret knowledge or enlightenment, but faithfully following God's call. Gnosticism traps people into their own thoughts and feelings and ignores the reality that's around them. A clear counterexample as Catholics is the Eucharist. It is truly Christ's flesh. And no matter how we feel or think about it, it is still Christ present there. For those who claim to be spiritual and not religious, they have a kinship into Gnosticism as well, and they lean into it, as they often have a view that religious institutions and traditions are secondary at best, or even corrupt. They favor disembodied, feeling-based spirituality. This philosophy commonly holds that salvation comes through individual and sometimes secret and personal knowledge or enlightenment that only they have, rather than through Christ, his church, and the sacraments. Okay, so I already said you may be Gnostic if. Here's another one. You may be Gnostic if you think almost everything is a conspiracy. Do you know somebody like that? Headlines and social media posts play with the Gnostic in each one of us. I am guilty of it myself. Here's some made-up examples, just so that I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But let me ask you this. Do these sound familiar as well? John went to the bowling alley, and you'll never believe what happened next. Or three things relationship experts don't want you to know about dating. Or movie star's cover-up fails, his secret is out. Ooh. Or Amazon doesn't want you to know about this, and then fill in the blank, right? See, our fallen nature gravitates towards scandal and cover-ups, fueling the news cycle driven by ad revenue. Gnosticism thrives on conspiracy theories, suggesting that the church is hiding secret teachings or undisclosed miracles about Jesus that are not mentioned in the Bible. And thus you might find out like the Gnostic Bible or the Gnostic Gospels. They're not the scriptures. Here's some headlines that give it away. Did Jesus really rise from the dead? New evidence may shock you. Or these are two real ones. I didn't make these up. The secret history of Jesus. What? Or my favorite, Jesus the magician, charlatan or son of God? You decide. And that's the problem, is we get to decide. Like, we didn't make this up. God is real, and he came in his Son, both body and soul. Two natures, one person. There's so much more to say about Gnosticism, and of course, lots of errors, but let's just make it really clear. Here's what really matters. Number one, recognize when we're tempted by Gnostic thinking. Recognize when we're tempted by Gnostic thinking, and just lean into Jesus. Number two, remember that the truth and reality exist outside our opinions and feelings. You could be wrong. I could be wrong. Sometimes we're driven, our feelings can actually lead us astray. And number three, reject the idea that salvation comes through some secret knowledge. The Bible's not secret. Anybody can read it. So Gnostic thinking can creep into us all. And this is one of those parts of Christology, if you were to study this would be one of those things that you would study, is Gnosticism. But see, the answer is simple. Trust in Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He sanctified the body and soul. And when we do sin and fall, we don't need hidden knowledge to fix it. We have something far much greater. The sacraments. And especially in that case, when we've sinned, confession, where God's grace makes us new. Today we heard from the Beatitudes. And I don't think I heard this. Blessed are the Gnostics, for their secret knowledge will save them. No. So, bottom line, avoid Gnosticism, and you won't believe what happens next. Thank you again for listening to this episode of the Father Bill's podcast. If you have any comments or questions, I just invite you to go to my webpage, fatherbill.org, FRBILL.org.
There you can see, well, you can email me, actually, right from that webpage. You can see what's going on my social media, Facebook, and formerly known as Twitter, x.com. I'm also on threads.net. The podcasts aren't really on like Instagram. That's more photos, but there's some photos there, but I don't really visit that page much. That kind of dates me, I know, but that's what it is. And in the meantime, may God bless you. And next week we will continue with our homily series on Christology. Deacon Brett will be preaching, and he'll kind of put it all, tie it all together in a nice, neat little theological bow. How about that? God bless you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.